All right, my friends, it is time for another edition of 10 out of 10 no skip albums, in which I share albums that I consider to be 10 out of 10s with no skips. Now, just to be clear, I'm not suggesting that these are, any sort of universal list of the best albums of all time or anything like that. I'm just saying, hey, you know what? These are some albums that I liked, because a lot of people ask me that, believe it or not. They say, hey, what are some of your favorite albums of all time? And at first I said, I don't really listen to albums that much. I'm more of a singles guy. But I thought about it more and I said, actually, there are quite a few albums that I would consider 10s. And so this list is just my personal albums that I would consider a 10. If you don't consider these a 10, that's okay. If there's another album that you think is a 10 that's not on this list, that's okay too. This is just my opinion, so take it for that. The first one that I would put on this list, I'm cheating a little bit here because it's technically a compilation, is The First 4 Years by Black Flag. The First 4 Years, as you might guess from the name of this album, is a compilation of all the singles and EPs and stuff that they did in the first 4 years that they were a band, from I think 1977 to 1981, I believe. So it has the 6-pack 7-inch, it has the Nervous Breakdown 7-inch, it has Louie Louie, and it has the Jealous Again EP. But it is an album, so I'm cheating a little bit, but it is what it is. But first, I'd like to thank Established Titles for sponsoring this video. You may now refer to me as Lord Finn Mckenty. See? Says it right here. And that is thanks to today's sponsor, Established Titles. Established Titles is a fun and novel way to preserve the natural woodlands of Scotland while helping global reforestation efforts. And that's cause I can get behind. It's a project based on a historic Scottish custom where landowners are referred to as lairds, or lords and ladies in English. Title packs give you at least 1 square foot of dedicated land with a unique plot number on a private estate in Edelston, Scotland, and an official certificate just like this one with a crest. They plant a tree with every order and work with global charities One Tree Planted and Trees for the Future to support global reforestation efforts. And what might you do with the certificate? Well, I am going to make everybody I know refer to me as my lord, but you could also put it on your credit cards or your plane tickets or whatever. It's really up to you. And it makes a great last minute gift. And the first 200 people who purchase a title pack using my link will effectively be next to my plot within a few minutes walking distance. So depending on how many of you want to be a lord or lady, we can build our own little punk rock NBA kingdom. Go to establishedtitles.com/punkrocknba or hit the link in the description of this video to shop their Black Friday sale. Plus, get an additional 10% off any purchase with the code punkrocknba and help support the channel. So thank you to Established Titles for sponsoring this video. I'm sure that all of you are familiar with Black Flag, but just in case you aren't, this is the band that pretty much invented hardcore. Pretty much. Again, starting 1977, 1978, the band that really defined hardcore as we know it, really responsible for kind of the whole blueprint for how a DIY band operates. They owned their own label, SST, booked their own tours and stuff back when that wasn't really so much of a thing to do these national DIY tours and stuff. One of the earlier American punk bands to go to Europe. So really, aside from their music, just their cultural impact was massive. And again, you've probably seen that meme of Black Flag tattoos, or just live, laugh, love tattoos for grumpy old punk dudes. Not wrong. Not wrong. Somehow I avoided getting a Black Flag tattoo. Instead, I have 2 Hatebreed tattoos. But in my opinion, Nervous Breakdown, it's the first song by Black Flag. In my opinion, it might be their best one. It's pretty great. This is with Keith Morris, who went on to be in Circle Jerks and Off. Fix Me is a great one too. I love this guitar tone. It's so filthy. I love the production on this.
I'm about to have a nervous breakdown. My head really hurts.
I've been listening to this for over 30 years now. Still love it. It sounds like a Fender Deluxe Reverb cranked to 11 with broken speakers. I believe that he was playing through a PA. I love it. And, you think about it, these are such catchy songs. This is what's missing from so much hardcore that came after it, is these are just legitimately super, super catchy, almost poppy songs, I feel like a lot of hardcore bands just sort of got into this contest over who could be more hardcore, which, you know, that's cool too. But, you know, remember the songs. I mean, these are such catchy songs, great choruses, tons of groove. Exactly. Great hooks. This is the most accessible Black Flag album for sure. All the rest of their albums are really weird and hard to listen to. This is the one that would sound like real music to most people. Keith Morris sounds awesome. He's really underrated as a punk vocalist. I mean, again, a lot of people know who he is, obviously, but I feel like he really does not get the flowers that he deserves as a punk vocalist. So that is maybe like, if I had to pick one Black Flag release, it would be the Nervous Breakdown 7-inch. But a lot of people would also pick the Jealous Again EP with their other vocalist, Ron Reyes, on it, who I think that's a fair pick. If you were to say that he's the better vocalist, I wouldn't disagree with you. This is another great song from it, No Values, off the Jealous Again EP, again, collected on the first 4 years. A little bit more like, a little bit less melodic, a little bit more hardcore, but a great chorus still. Great sing-along chorus. Super catchy chorus. Hopefully I'm not a fake punk for not really liking Black Flag, but maybe I need to give them more of a chance. Well, no, I don't think you're wrong about that, because all the rest of their music is kind of deliberately weird and artsy and noisy, and like, it was not supposed to be accessible. They started writing this weird experimental shit for the like explicit purpose of pissing off all their fans, which they did. So if you've listened to some of their later albums, especially the Henry Rollins stuff, and thought, well, this is kind of weird and hard to listen to, you're not wrong. That shit is hard to listen to. So there we have it. If for some reason you have never listened to this Black Flag album, I would highly suggest just, well, finish this video, then stop what you're doing, put it on, listen to it from start to finish. I think it holds up. I mean, this is like 40 years old. I think it still sounds fucking awesome. To me, obviously I'm old and biased, but I've been listening to this since maybe 1990. I still think it's fucking great. There's a reason why they're considered one of the most iconic bands of all time, because they deserve it. Switching things up a little bit to something a little bit newer. I can already predict all the people who are saying, hell yeah, brother, it's about time you talked about some real punk rock like Black Flag. I can already predict that those same people are about to turn on me in the comments and tell me what a poser I am and how awful my taste and everything is, because the next album that I would consider a 10 out of 10 is Look at Yourself by Emmure from 2017, I think. The pinnacle of their career. This is actually, they'd been a band for probably like, 15 years or something like that when this came out. All new lineup with the exception of the vocalist Frankie. The lineup in this is essentially the band Glass Cloud, but with Frankie on vocals. 15 years into their career, they somehow leveled up and got even better than they were before. And this is Natural Born Killer, which is one of the singles off this album. Everyone in this band is a fucking incredible musician. Listen to that groove. So much groove. The drumming is great, but I will let you in on a secret. Those drums are programmed. This drummer is awesome, but these drums are programmed. Great drum programming. Shout out to Drew Folk and Jeff Dunn for their work on this album. Frankie is a sick vocalist too. Another thing that I gotta say, so this is obviously kind of a simple riff, right? Like some chugs with some weird like squealing over it. If you think this shit is easy to play, you remember back in like 2011, the metal nerds would make the memes about like how Emmure tabs were binary code or Cheerios because it was all chugs. If you think this shit is easy to play, please do yourself a favor. Try to record yourself playing syncopated chugs this tight. Let me know how easy it is. I think you'll find out it's a little bit fucking harder than you think. This shit is hard as fuck to play. I gotta shout out Josh Travis, the guitarist here. You may know him from being in Glass Cloud and Tony Danza. These guitars are quad tracked, meaning he did every part 4 times. 2 in the right channel, 2 in the left channel. He recorded all these guitars on the album in a fucking day. quad tracked all these guitars and the bass in one fucking day. That is inhuman. My personal favorite song off this album, though, is Shinjuku Masterlord. I've joked about Frankie's lyrics, you know, like I want to watch you suck his dick and ask your girl my dick taste and stuff. But I legitimately think he is an incredible vocalist, and his lyrics, there's just a level of like just aggression that no other band in the genre has. Just it works because it's like half like nu metal. It's going to add up to more than one, but bear with me. Half nu metal, half rap, half hardcore adds up to something pretty cool. It just works. If anyone else did it, it would sound stupid, but when Frankie does it, it sounds fucking awesome. Just grooves so hard. I'm back with that real shit. He has a lot of vocal range, actually. It's like the new Limp Bizkit. Do you really think I give a fuck because I don't? Anybody else would write that lyric and it would be so dumb. But when Frankie says it, I'm like, that's the coolest fucking thing I've ever heard. I don't know. Frankie plays by different rules. Move out the way so I can spit my shit. I also wanted to give some love to the drummer because even though the drums on the album are programmed, this drummer is sick. Listen to how fucking tight this is. On Warped Tour, which usually sounds like shit, and this sounds perfect. This sounds flawless compared to the studio version. And again, if you think this is easy to play because it's simple, please go for it. Let me know how that works out for you. Next one we have, I'm feeling a little bit hardcore. I feel hardcore today. You know how people, instead of saying hardcore, they say hardcore? So do you listen to hardcore? I like that. Like when people say TV instead of TV, I like to say hardcore. I'm feeling in a hardcore type of mood today, which brings us to my next album, Start Today by Gorilla Biscuits. This is from 1990, I believe. Again, if you are into hardcore, you probably know this album. It's iconic for a reason. I would say when it comes to like melodic hardcore, this is really the blueprint. I mean, if you listen to this, you'll hear a lot of bands doing something very similar to this, but nobody has done it as well as they did because the songwriting on this is just on another level. Walter Schriefels is the main songwriter in Gorilla Biscuits. He went on to be in Quicksand and Civ. Incredible songwriting. It's from 1990, so obviously the production sounds kind of old, but these are just incredible songs, and I'll talk about the lyrics in a minute, because this Gorilla Biscuits is a nice band. That's what really stood out about them to me, is they're nice, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Let's listen to this. This is Things We Say by Gorilla Biscuits from Start Today. Let's listen to the lyrics. I think are they in here? Did anyone do positive hardcore before them? Yeah, Youth of Today. Youth of Today 100% pioneered that, but Gorilla Biscuits was in the same vein as the youth crew bands before them, like 7 Seconds and Youth of Today and Alone in a Crowd and all that stuff. But Gorilla Biscuits did it better than everyone else by far. I want to talk about the lyrics to this song called Things We Say, which is basically about like, hey, be careful not to make a mean joke to one of your friends because it might hurt their feelings. I can't believe the things we say. A cutting word can ruin days. I can't believe the things we say. Now I wish I hadn't spoke. Can't you learn to take a fucking joke? We say things we don't mean, but friends understand. Respect and humor don't always go hand in hand. A joke to you might not be so funny, so take the time to think it out before you open up your mouth. What a nice song. This is like something that your mom would say. They would say like, hey, be careful. I know you and your friends like to joke, but I feel like you've been a little bit too hard on your friend Michael. Go easy on him. He doesn't want to show it, but I feel like you guys might be hurting his feelings. That's kind of what this song is about. Which I really like that, because a lot of people think I'm an asshole. I'm not. I'm a nice person. I like being nice to people. I don't like rude, like negative, angry energy or people. And when I heard this album, I was like, oh, finally, Like, there's a band that is like actively writing songs about being nice. This is refreshing. See a lot of Keep Hardcore Negative shirts at shows. Yeah, for sure. There's a sort of narrative that writing songs like this is corny or cheesy, and that writing angry, negative songs is cool. Well, I would say it takes a lot more balls to write a song about being nice than it does to write a song about being angry. I mean, anybody can write a song about being angry and fuck you and I hate the world and rah, rah, rah. And everyone will tell you, you know, how great that is and like, oh, that's you're so cool and edgy. But it takes a lot more balls to write a song about being nice. And that's what I really appreciated. This song is another good one. The title track, Start Today, which is about like this song, it's productivity core. This song is like an anti-procrastination song, which, you know, that's always been, I still think about this. Like, hey, why wait till tomorrow? Why not get started right now? Exactly. There's a difference between busting chops and being a dick. I found the time for hanging out and talking on the phone. Exactly. How many of your friends are like, oh yeah, sorry I didn't do that thing I said I was going to do. I was busy. And you're like, oh really? Because I saw your Instagram story and like, you know, you seemed to find time for playing Elden Ring 4 hours yesterday, but you were too busy to help me move. Okay, interesting.
Let's start today.
I mean, what a nice song. Start today. Come on. The whole album, really just incredible songwriting, not a bad song on the album, great lyrics, great performances, like one of the foundational albums in hardcore for a reason, still holds up. Like, I don't think anybody has ever done this style better than they did way back in 1990. Good stuff. I am a fan. It is a 10 out of 10. Now, on a less positive note, or less upbeat note, I should say, is Call Me When You're Sober, Part 1 by Lil Peep, from back in 2017. Now, Peep did so much music that I feel like actually a lot of his best songs were just kind of random singles. I don't feel like there's any one album that really best represents his work because of that. Because I mean, he has like, what, well over 100 songs, I think. But if I had to pick one album to kind of represent his career, I think it would be this one, Call Me When You're Sober, Part 1. Definitely not positive or upbeat or happy, but it is fucking incredible. I would say, you know, of his big singles from that album, Save That Shit is probably the one that really kind of encapsulates him more than anything else. Every song he did was amazing. I agree. What a fucking talented fucking kid. He recorded hundreds of songs and almost all of them were fucking A level or above. He had such an incredible batting average. What a ridiculous generational talent. And I don't know if that is a sample or if they recorded it for this song, but, you know, remember, this is back in 2017. The idea of like having these like Midwest emo kind of riffs and samples and stuff in songs was really ahead of its time back then. If Bones invented emo rap, Peep perfected it. I totally agree with that. Bones was probably the first, but Peep was just, the songwriting was on another level. He's one of these rappers, kind of like City Morgue, where like every fucking line he says is a hook. Every song is a banger, and every fucking line of every song is a hook. The ultimate sad boy, absolutely. I talk very highly of him as a person in previous videos as opposed to just his music. Now, I don't know him. I've followed him a lot. I talk highly about him as a person because he shared a lot of himself like on social media and stuff like that I feel like I had a pretty good sense of where his head was at. And, you know, he's obviously a fucked up, troubled guy. But he knew that, he didn't hide it, and I think he helped a lot of people with his music. You know, it's just one of these things where, unfortunately, by helping other people, I think he maybe hurt himself to some extent, which is really sad. But I think he was on the verge of, like, he was going to be this generation's Kurt Cobain. I 100% believe that. He was right on the verge of like blowing the fuck up. Yeah, you've never heard anybody say anything negative about him. Like, it's, everybody loved him. Everyone says great things about him. He would have been this generation's Kurt Cobain or My Chemical Romance. I mean, he was about to be just fucking huge, and died like right before he was about to blow up, which was incredibly sad, but just absolute musical genius. I mean, you watch the documentary about him and he would record like, 4 or 5 songs in a fucking night, and all of them were good. Meanwhile, there's some shitty gent band working on their crappy EP for 3 fucking years. One thing that's kind of interesting to me when I was listening to this song earlier, I was like, man, it is so obvious to me where his like vocal cadence comes from. Listen to this Chief Keef song, Love Sosa. It's so obvious to me that basically what he did was take Chief Keef and combine it with like, 2000s emo, and that was Lil Peep. Right? These kind of melodies and vocal cadence with 2000s emo riffs, that's Peep. Shout out to Smoke a Sack, who had such a vision to blend alternative and hip hop. It just came out so naturally. Yeah, he produced a lot of that Peep stuff. Also, Ned from If I Die First produced a lot of this stuff too. I would say this song, You Said, the second half of it here, when I heard this, the lyrics just straight up fucking says who he is and where he's coming from. And as soon as I heard this, I was like, oh, now I get it. And at first I was like, this kid's a fucking douchebag. He's just like this party kid. This is fucking dumb. But then when I heard this song, I was like, oh, no. I get it now. I understand he is somebody who's, just profoundly depressed and sad, who's just trying to fucking get through life. He's like a happy person who is unfortunately like burdened with having a brain that doesn't want him to be happy. As soon as I heard this song, I got it. This chorus right here. This is one of those lines that kind of reminds me of hardcore because it's like so simple and just straightforward, but so powerful. Sometimes life gets fucked up. That's why we get fucked up. Like, okay, now I see where you're coming from. Classic song. Again, he's really not an album kind of guy. He was more of just like a shitpost music, record 2, 3, 4 songs a day and put them out on SoundCloud kind of guy. So, it doesn't do Peep justice to listen to just one of his albums. You just kind of got to listen to all of his songs and pick the ones you like the most. But if I had to pick one, I would say 10 out of 10 album would be Call Me When You're Sober Part 1. But really everything he did was fucking great. And kind of like almost like my generation's version of him in a way is a band that, is very misunderstood, Sublime. I mean, I think all their albums are really good, but if I had to pick one, I would say 40 Ounces to Freedom by Sublime from, 1994, I think it was. Another one of these bands where the discrepancy between how I think a lot of their fans listen to them versus who they actually were and what they were saying is very interesting. So, you think of Sublime and probably for most people, you think of them as like the soundtrack to like some like douchey stoner college party where everyone's like just smoking weed and like being dumb and whatever, kind of like just shallow party music, or maybe people listening to it at the county fair or something like that, because it sounds like that. It sounds like chill, good times party music. But if you actually listen to it, listen to the lyrics, kind of like with Lil Peep, there's this like incredibly deep like sadness to it. Like really, really profound lyrics that just are, they're so dark that it's almost hard to listen to because they're just so incredibly dark and full of pain. My personal favorite Sublime song is from 40 Ounces to Freedom. It's actually from their demo, I think, but on the album 40 Ounces to Freedom, called Bad Fish, which is about basically being a junkie and being unable to escape the life. And just ridiculously good songs, in addition to great lyrics. And when he says, when you grab a hold of me, what he's talking about is heroin. I mean, that's what this song is about. Bad fish, meaning someone who, basically a junkie who kind of tries to get other people into the lifestyle. Like I was watching this thing about what was the skater? One of these skaters said, oh, I was hanging out with Jay Adams, and Jay Adams pulled me into the bedroom and was like, hey, give me your arm, and shot him up with heroin. And that's when he became like a heroin addict. That'd be an example of a Bad Fish. So this song is literally about, it's like a junkie concept song, basically.
You tell me that I'll never be set
I'll never be set free. I mean, that's what it feels like to be an addict. I mean, you can hear it in his voice. You know, you can hear the pain. Andy Roy, that's who it was. Won't somebody get me off of this reef? You know, obviously the metaphor there is like, you know, being an addict. Like, I'm weak, I can't do this on my own. Like, won't somebody help? You know, and it's one of these things where I feel like people like this, because they're so talented and charismatic, and because their music is so happy, that, you know, nobody really pauses to think about whether, you know, what's going on with him. You think, oh, well, how could he really be in such a dark, bad place if he plays these happy songs, you know, that everyone enjoys so much? Like, this is party music. How could he be that unhappy? But he was, because he OD'd, what, 2 years after this album came out, 96, 97, I think. Incredible album, incredible band. Again, they're another one of these bands where I would encourage you to just listen to everything they've done, because it's all so good. This is my personal favorite song, but honestly, they have great songs on all their albums. I would suggest listen to their discography from start to finish. There's everything from, you know, this sort of like reggae, dub, ska stuff to, you know, some like punk and hardcore songs, you know, hip hop influence stuff, just all over the place. Great band, great album, 10 out of 10 in my book. And lastly, one of my favorite albums of all time, all by Descendents from 1987. This is their last album in sort of the original incarnation of the band. They broke up in 87, got back together in 1994, and recorded the album Everything Sucks, which came out in, what, 95 or 96, something like that, which was very good. But in my opinion, the early stuff is better, and I think this is really kind of the essence of the Descendents sound. The early stuff, like Milo Goes to College, is really cool, pretty like straightforward kind of, you know, early 80s punk hardcore kind of stuff, which is great. But this is the album where they got kind of weird and progressive and really just found their groove as like kind of this combination of like King Crimson with like pop punk. Really crisp, like clear pop songwriting with great lyrics, but with some kind of weird, cool, progressive touches that a lot of people may not hear. Even Tom from Blink says he was just trying to sound like Milo in this album. Yeah, listen to this and you'll understand that Blink is just trying to sound like this. I mean, listen to the bass, the drums, like Blink is essentially, they will tell you this, Blink is just trying to do their version of the Descendents. This is my favorite Descendents song, Coolidge. Phil Stevenson, who played drums in this, also in Black Flag, as you may know. Listen to those bass lines. Great bassist. Just great pop songwriting, but like the guitars are so metal. They're like pop songs with like a super metal guitarist. Sounds like Blink when Scott was in the band. Absolutely. You hear this is just the soundtrack, really the blueprint for all the later like 90s and 2000s pop punk bands that were basically about being a, you know, down bad kid from the suburbs that wrote songs about how the girl he liked didn't like him back. This band, and especially this album, I think are the blueprint for that. My favorite song on this album, I think, is this song Pep Talk, which has legitimately really good lyrics. The Descendents have some kind of cringy incel sort of lyrics, but this, in my opinion, like is maybe lyrically their best song. Really good, like positive, upbeat lyrics. Listen to those bass lines too. This is such a great song. Kind of an underrated one too. I feel like this is not a Descendents song that I hear people talk about very often, but it should be. Very wholesome song. The band broke up after this album because Milo went over to get his PhD in, I think, biology, something like that, to pursue his career as a scientist, which he did for quite a while before coming back to the band full-time eventually. But yeah, absolute classic of pop punk. Not a bad song on there. I'm a fan of all their first like whatever, their first several albums I think are all classics, but if I had to pick this one, it would be All by Descendents from 1987. And that does it for this edition of 10 out of 10 albums with no skips. I hope you found something that you like, and if you didn't, well, that's your problem, not mine.